Welcome to Embrace the Spiritual Podcast. Join friends Michelle and Dawn as they share tips on how you too can open your heart, raise your vibration, and reclaim your sovereignty. Hear what they have experienced and overcome in their spiritual journeys while navigating this expansive spiritual multiverse. Discover how they transform their soul lessons from ordinary into extraordinary.
Follow, subscribe, and share Embrace the Spiritual Podcast on all streaming services, including YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Go to embracethespiritual.com for bonus content and a list of upcoming episodes. To book an aura regression, raw Reiki, or Akashic reading with Dawn, visit her website, alchemy-sacredsound.com. To book a quantum Akashic reading, quantum Reiki healing, pet Reiki, or a home and land clearing, visit Michelle on her website at energeticembrace.com.
Greetings, everyone. It's been a hot minute, hasn't it? It feels like 3 years to Michelle and I with all that has happened. I guess it's only been 5 weeks.
I think so. I don't know. Time is just totally warped over the last month and change.
With everything that's happened since we've left the beautiful eclipse, the shifting of energies, we felt this was an important time to talk about fear. And just with the whole the craziness of the eclipse. I was on the eclipse paths and was lucky enough to be able to see it. And just our county wanted to close us down because they're like, oh, there's going to be millions of people. You're not going to be able to drive. And honestly, it was the quietest, most peaceful day that I've ever had in where I live. And I did go a couple towns over to watch the beautiful sunset. Unfortunately, we did have really intense clouds, but I did get to see the sun at the totality, which was beautiful. But before that, there were people in our town square, which I feel like we're in the 1800s when I say that, that were, had repent signs. And it just got me thinking, like, there is so much fear in everyday life. If it's government on the TV saying you can't do this, and just our local government saying we have to shut down. Did they really have to shut down? I don't think we had an influx of visitors because honestly, I think people left the area to go where there was no cloud. So I think what they were proposing never really and truly happened. And that's how life is. You cannot predict what is going to happen, and worrying and having anxiety over certain situations is not in your best interest at any time. It causes fear, and fear always lowers your vibration. And I know it's hard living this life and being in that, the energies of people around you having lower energies because, you are with who you hang out with, unless you can see the energetic manipulations that are happening. So we're just going to try to teach you to be aware of what's happening when others aren't matching your energy and how to keep it up so that you don't match their energy and lower your vibration.
I'm glad you referenced the eclipse energy because it was really a strong energetic time. And a lot of people go into those, oh my gosh, the full moon's out, or like all these things that are energetically happening. And they have their own belief system over the majority of the time about what's going to go wrong during that time. Well, if you're concentrating on what's going to go wrong, the universe is going to go, I'll show you some stuff that can go wrong because that's what you're looking for. And I was actually in Egypt during the time of the eclipse. So that was one of the reasons that we took this last month off. I had some energetic work to do over in Egypt. So I was over there for 3 weeks, and it was about 8 p.m., I think, when the eclipse was coming over North America. And so we got together. We happened to be in Cairo, and the hotel that we stayed at, our rooftop kind of patio, we were a kilometer, so probably like 1.5 kilometers, so a mile away from the Giza pyramids. So we could actually see 2 of the main pyramids at the Giza compound. So energetically, we're in the eclipse energy and the Giza pyramid energy, and we could feel it. So whether you got to see it or not, whether it was cloud covered, the energy is still there. And we took it as a really beautiful time. There was a group of us that sat on the rooftop and just, had a little bit of a ceremony and felt into the energy. I could feel it in my heart. It was just like my heart was almost exaggerated beating kind of out of my chest. It was really cool to experience that. And, even talking about being in Egypt from a fear perspective. So really the origin of fear is caveman's being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, and it is literally life and death. So the fear helps get that blood from your heart out to your extremities, increases your adrenaline, and helps you to safety. Well, I travel a lot. I've traveled overseas many times, and a lot of times I've traveled by myself, or sometimes I've been with a group. And there certainly are things that you could be fearful of in traveling to a country like Egypt. And it's a very beautiful country. I loved it, but you go in with some preconceived notions, right? So anytime you travel, you're aware to keep your passport safe and, those general things from pickpockets and whatnot. So that wasn't the fear that I'm talking about, but it was more I don't know what to expect. So sometimes when we don't know what to expect, we automatically go into that fear mode, right? It's what we've known growing up, maybe what we've seen others do. So if we go into that fear mode, you're going to be shown situations that are going to say, yes, your fear is warranted because this is going to happen. You might lose something, piece of luggage, whatever the case might be. So what I want to bring kind of to this episode is the difference between having awareness of something versus fear. And I think that's a really big thing, like Dawn was talking about with the politics that are out there, the world events that are happening. We can be aware of them, but once we're fearful of what's going to happen, that's the energetic shift. So awareness can still keep us in a higher vibration state. We can be aware of our surroundings without being fearful. And I think, over this last month, both Dawn and I were in a situation where there was a lot of fear generated in a collective group of people. And you could really see the difference in who connected and attached themselves to that fear base versus who did not. And, as Dawn said, talking about that heart discernment, it's really an opportunity to step into your heart to say, I'm not going to look at it that way. I'm choosing not to be fearful of the situation. And it shifts because if you believe in the fear, then that's how it's going to manifest. Whether it's fear of failure, fear of losing somebody, worried that some negative thing's going to always be in your life. Well, what we focus on and what persists is what we will be presented with. So we'll chat a little bit about awareness versus fear, but I'll get your take on that, Dawn, if that's something that is in your field.
Well, I'm going to say, is it really in my field? Because I think I do a pretty good job of trying to keep, the fear at bay, because I realize that we are living in a holographic universe, and people are probably like, what is that? No, we have mentioned, I can't remember what episode, so help me out. The CIA has done studies that we live in a holographic universe and that we can control and manifest what we need and want on the timelines that we want. It's not always, going to be instantaneous, because some things you need to work on healing yourself, and healing the fear is one of the things that we all need to work on. I remember growing up, I was extremely afraid of the dark. I had ghosts and other beings in my room at night. And when I had children, I remember one of my daughters was like, well, I'm afraid of the monsters under the bed. And I realized, oh my goodness, I know that fear. And you don't have to be afraid, because the monster under that bed needs to be afraid of me, because I'm going to kick its butt, is how I was feeling. Because I felt that divine mother protective energy coming through. Like, if anything hurts my child, I am going to obliterate it out of your life with my love for my child. So it's going into situations, and being aware of all times. Am I being manipulated? Because a lot of times there are people put in your life who are trying to manipulate you.
Your dog is agreeing. Could you hear
Yes.
it? I don't know if you can hear on the episode, but her dog is there growling. So
yes, and she's my divine protector. So she knows when there's stuff that we can't see happening, and which is fine, because I know I'm being protected on all aspects of my life. Now that she interrupted my thought, it's that divine mother love energy that we can protect ourselves on so many energetic levels. And the only way that things will hurt us is if we let that fear consume us. We see it time and time again in movies that we love. Think of like The Underdog, where they're presented with a situation and it looks like they're not going to win, but they overcome it because they overcome the fear of the situation, because they find that love for themselves, that love for whatever is needed in that time and place to focus their energy and overcoming. Another good one is the Erin Brockovich story, where she had love for that community who was being poisoned and how she was not going to rest until things were made right. That's how we should all be for our fellow human beings. Is if you see something, say something. We are not helpless like you may feel. We are so powerful. We can overcome anything that we want to. It's just you have to shift your energy and say, I am done playing this game. I'm done being manipulated by the television. I'm done being manipulated by friends. I have a lot of friends whom I love dearly. Unfortunately, they are not in their power and they let other people tell them what they should be afraid of. And that's not how I live my life. And that's not how I tell my children to live their lives, or even my husband. If something's not meant to happen with us, we're not going to be afraid of the possible situation that's going to happen. We're going to think it through and come up with solutions if it's possible to control it that way.
Really, fear, in my mind, creates an opportunity. So if we're fearful of something, sometimes it's because, yes, it's maybe programming. Our parents were worried about money, so we get worried about money. Fear, worry, it's all the same. But sometimes fear is the unknown. I'd never been to Egypt, so I didn't know what to expect. I did some research so I could try to figure out. I was going with a group, so I knew that I would be safe. We had local driver, guide, and another local from Luxor that was with us the whole time. So we had the translator and stuff. So I felt safe the whole time. All good. But fear is the opportunity to look into why is the thing causing you fear? It's no different than a trigger. Something has triggered fear in you. So if there's a trigger, that's an opportunity for growth. So what is triggering that fear? Okay, so maybe it is financial. So what are some belief systems around that financial that you could maybe change? Because if you're always worried about where the next dollar is going to come from, you're going to consistently be faced with situations where it's either just out of your reach or you get just enough maybe to pay your bills, but you never get ahead. And I think if we first identify what that fear is, so get off the hamster wheel as far as your brain goes and creating the anxiety around it, because the anxiety is just replaying the same story. And I'm not here to minimize anything that anybody experiences, but if we can take a step back and identify it, identify the fear. Sometimes I know with my daughter's anxiety years and years ago, we gave the anxiety a name. So maybe you need to name it, because then when you're naming it, it's something outside of you. And it kind of takes that maybe hold it has on you, so to speak. So identify what the fear is. So I think that's really key when you're looking at whatever fear of illness, your reputation, fear of dying, fear of being hurt, fear of the unknown, whatever it is, you want to identify it. And if it helps to write it down. So we've talked about this in past episodes. In whatever you're doing, if you find your mind is replaying things over and over again, write it down. And that action of physically writing, and I'm not talking about using your thumbs to put a note in your phone, physically write it in a book, helps it take it transition from your mind into your physical body and out onto the paper. And you know what? Admit the fear, because sometimes when we name it and admit that you're fearful about something, well, that's how you can change. If we don't admit that we're fearful about something, how are you going to find solutions to work through that fear? And it's not just about declaring, I'm not fearful of anything. Well, that's no better than saying I'm always love light and nothing ever happens. Like, you're one extreme or the other, and there's always going to be ups and downs. We all have shadow work. We all have things that we're going to deal with. So it's not all rosy on either end. Once you can identify and admit it, hey, our brain's already working on it, so let's do some analysis. When you're writing on the paper, maybe you're writing what your fear is. Okay, I'm fearful of this. Well, why? Keep asking the why question until you can get lower level. Well, why are you fearful? Oh, maybe my parents were fearful. Well, why were your parents fearful? Oh, maybe this happened. So why are you fearful? And keep breaking it down and keep writing down whatever your answer is, because you can get to the underlying source of it. And that's what's going to help you shift it, especially if it's something that's really ingrained in us, like fear of the dark, or something that, you hear the saying, you're paralyzed with fear. That's your body literally shutting down because it is so fearful. So you really want to get to that point. So keep asking yourself why. Imagine someone else is interviewing. Well, why? Why? And it's not a judgment. It's not saying, well, why are you fearful? Like, that's ridiculous. No, there's no judgment, because as soon as you add judgment about it, the fear is going to stay there. So don't judge your fear. It could be a fear from a different life. Maybe there's something in your Akashic records that Dawn and I can help you about, that maybe you have this fear of something that seems completely irrational because nothing's happened in this lifetime. So maybe there's something on a different energetic plane that we can help you find. So how do you overcome it? So that's great. We can identify it, maybe do the whys. Well, then what, right? You can only work on what you know you need to work on. So come back into, and this is kind of that awareness. So if you're aware of maybe what the root of that fear is, that awareness can help keep it under control. So then you can say, okay, maybe when this thing happens, it triggers my fear in something. So then you can look at managing that trigger maybe. So sometimes fear is just about not feeling in control. That's really what it is. Fear of the unknown. Well, we can't control the future. We can to a degree of our actions, but we don't truly know what the future is going to be, because it's being created in every thought, every second, every action. So living in that moment, not worrying about the past, the future, but only the present, there is no fear. I'm sitting in my chair. I don't have a fear right now of anything because I'm in the present moment. I tend to find that the fear and worry is when we're thinking too much in the future. And then we're not in the present. If you're worried about the future, that's no fun either, because you're missing out on magic of what's happening all around you. Be in that present moment. Have that balanced state of mind, whether you're meditating, doing something for yourself, go have a bath, do something that's just for you. And know that any thought that comes into our mind, we have the power to change our perception around that thought, because that's what happens most times. It's our perception of the thought, right? Our perception is what we can change. And then that will help shift the thoughts in the future. So when we look at animals, their primal instinct, they only have fear if they're being chased by something that could eat them or is scary. So otherwise, they're pure love. They get up every day. I just said this about our dog this morning. I said to him, wow, every day is a new day for you, isn't it? And how special is that? He wakes up, gets out of his crate in the morning, and he is excited for the day. Like whatever happened the day before doesn't come into his awareness, because he is excited for that day. He goes and gets his ball. He wants to play fetch right away. He doesn't bring the baggage of the day before like us humans tend to do. So seeing that in the present moment, and know that there is duality in everything that we do. So don't be fearful of it, right? When we're fearful, it's because we don't know what to expect. If you expect there is going to be some duality, then it's all opportunity. And maybe you need to share it with somebody. Then, sometimes by sharing our fears with other people, it takes the power out of the fear, right? Because sometimes we let that fear grip onto us, and sharing it just helps us, helps take the edge off of it, I guess. So be aware of the fact that it's there, drill into why it might be there. It could be something that is ancestral, that's coming, being taught to us, and fear can be overcome. We need to choose to overcome it.
I'm glad you're reading my notes, because I was thinking that, a lot of fear is ancestral, and we're just picking up on it because we can feel it come through that energetic lines from our ancestors. But also I was thinking conscious languaging is so important for overcoming fear. I have taken the word worrying and anxiety out of my talking. So like when my daughter asks me, oh, are you worried about me doing this? And I said, I just answer no. Do I have concerns? Yes. But am I going to let them overcome my mindset? Absolutely not. She just got her license. So yay, at the age of 19, she can drive now. And it just feels so energetically different than my oldest. My oldest got into an accident the first day that she was driving, which was extremely traumatic for her. And then she got into another accident, I believe it was that year. And I felt it in my heart that something was going to happen. And knowing, the person that I was and who I am now, I was reading the timeline. I was feeling the anxiety of the situation. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that something was going to happen. And it was okay. She was not hurt. Yes, her system was all, discombobulated because it was a winter crash where instead of being able to stop, she ended up in a spin out and hitting two cars. But it was the perfect situation because my husband had off from school and we both were able to go down to help her. So turning that fear for her into a positive thing, my husband was able to help her with one thing and stay at the scene of the accident. They wanted her to go to the hospital and I refused. I said she needs to go to my chiropractor so he can reset her system because her system was in overload from all the adrenaline, the anxiety, the worry of, oh no, what's going to happen now? So I remember going to the chiropractor and he was open and it was an emergency phone call and I said, can we get in? My daughter just had an accident and they said yes. So I'm grateful for the beautiful people that I have surrounded myself with and that they let us walk in off the street. And she did have trauma in her body and we were able to clear it out in a couple of sessions, which is, we have so many tools at our disposal. It's just looking for them when a situation arises. And I was thinking as you were talking, Michelle, how do I deal with fear? So I don't have a worry of the future. I have actually events that have happened in the past. I could have handled that situation better. So I don't journal. I actually go out into nature if it's a sunny day and I connect with the earth. And I start processing of what I didn't like, what happened. And I just start imagine the sun, the wind, whatever is happening on that day, washing it out of my system. And I talk to the trees and I talk to the flowers and the insects and anything that is around. And I ask for help from it to energetically help me shift because I don't want this in me anymore. It's not serving me. I have a bigger purpose that I don't need to be caught up in these repetitive motions that are going on in my brain. And that is how I deal with the anxiety and fear in my life. And it really does help. I also do a meditation once I can calm my brain down enough to be able to focus on keeping my mind clear and empty and feeling in the present moment. So that is how I deal with the fear of situations. And my husband is more of a in the future worrier, and he is a lot busier than I am. And I just am extremely logical. And I'm like, well, you're literally calling in those timelines. So why would you do that? And I know he gets frustrated. He's like, you're always about calling in those timelines. And I'm like, well, that's what you're doing. Conscious languaging. We have these tools. I'm like, of course, I am going to tell you what can fix the situation because this is what I do. I'm like his little cheerleader, even, if he's like, no. Burning the journaling to let it go. Yes. And I was thinking while you're talking and burning it because it's not serving you don't need to reread it. If you are journaling, just to let it go and to set that energy away from yourself is another beautiful ritual I like to do if I feel inclined that I do need to write something down, especially if it's something that there's certain situations where I just know that I won't be happy until I journal it out. And then I set it on fire to release the energy into the cosmos that's out there. And there are so many other tools. There's so many other people out there who have their different techniques. Find what works for you. Maybe you want to work with the water and take a shower and just work it out that way. Imagine the rain, standing out in the rain, in a river, in a pond. We have all these beautiful elements here to help us. Why not use them to our benefit?
I'm really glad that you brought that up about the journal, because I've also learned in the past too, is when you journal stuff like that about fears, or, maybe you had this really crappy situation happen and you just want to data dump it out of your mind and body onto paper. Don't keep those journals in your bedroom, because you're keeping that energy of what you've just journaled in your space when you're sleeping. So it's really key to keep these journals. Maybe you have to go put out in the garage, somewhere away from your main living space, so that it's not keeping it active. The whole purpose of writing it down is to kind of get it out of your mind and body, and burning it the best way. So you can, of course, do it in a safe place. I would always burn outside. I don't burn things in my house because, from a safety perspective, but you're getting rid of the energy. I don't want to get rid of the energy in my house and then you got to sage your entire house. So do it outside. And a great time to do it, especially depending on when you've written something, is a full moon. When you burn it on the full moon is all about releasing things, and the new moon is about bringing new things into your life. So if you're having a hard time remembering which one is which, new moon is new things coming in, full moon is releasing. So one of the other things that came up as you were talking, Dawn, is we have to want to fix it. Sometimes we get pretty attached to our fears because they become kind of our identity. And, you can write down and ask why, but you still have to want to fix it. And it can be scary. I get it. If we're not ready to find out who we are without that fear, because sometimes when we move beyond the fear, that's uncomfortable because it's something new. So it's okay to be vulnerable, and maybe get in the practice of, when you have a thought about some situation that's fear-based, write maybe gratitude statements or positive statements. So we're doing the what if on the negative fear worry cycle. What if we write about the positive things? What are all the good things? Well, what if this thing happened? Ooh, that would be kind of fun. What if this other thing happened? Oh, that'd be really exciting. I'd be happy about that. And as Dawn said, by writing about those positive things that could come out of that same fear-based situation, is we are creating that timeline ultimately, because you're putting that in. As soon as your body gets excited, and I just got goosebumps, as soon as you get excited about what the potential fun thing that's going to come out of that situation, you're creating it. And how cool is that? So maybe even on the money situation, what if we had so much money that we could do whatever we wanted at any time of the day, any time of the year? How would that feel? Ooh, that's kind of cool and sexy if that's something that, you're always worried about money. Well, what if you had such an abundance that your next thing you have to think about is, where do I want to travel to now? Or who do I want to maybe help? Maybe you're doing some community service things and you want to help some animal shelter or something. So feel into that side of the worry, right? That duality of the worry has a positive and negative side. So really focus on the positive side about what if that didn't come true? What if your fear or worry didn't come true? Then what? So it's kind of that manifesting and putting it out there. So I just wanted to add that little piece around kind of the journaling. And again, when you're writing it down, you're kind of declaring it as well. So you're feeling it in your body and you're declaring that, oh, yes. Then you start going, oh, what would be my goal list? What would I do if I didn't have to work anymore and I could do anything? Like everyone dreams of retirement. Well, what if that retirement could come today? Wow, that's pretty exciting. So, it just gives me all tingles and goosebumps. I wanted to talk a little more. Dawn had started talking about this with her daughter's accident and the impact on your nervous system. Is we tend to forget those impacts on our physical body. Fear, when you're in fear, your adrenal glands kick in, the cortisol. It's no different than always being in that fight or flight kind of state. And that could even be, I would experience that from the perspective of working so much, right? Of needing to get all this work done. So it wasn't necessarily fear, but it was still not a healthy behavior. And my adrenal glands dropped to, they were operating at 50% of their capacity because I was depleted. And, if I ever had a situation that was a true fear-based situation, I couldn't have probably produced much adrenaline to deal with it. It would have been like, oh, well, so that happened. There are definitely some things that can happen at a physical level, like chronic fear on your system affects your immune system, your endocrine system, your nervous system. It affects your sleep and wake cycle. People can have eating disorders. So if these are some of the things that you're experiencing, and we may not realize that it's happening, but maybe on an emotional level, we're having a hard time loving things in life or loving people in life, or you feel a bit helpless, or you do have that chronic anxiety, maybe some mood swings, maybe some obsessive compulsive thoughts. So if you're experiencing some of that, it could be chronic fear. And sometimes we think fear is only a couple of things, but fear can cover, like fear is worry. So worry is just, I'm worried about or fearful that something may or may not happen. Sometimes we think, oh, I don't live in fear, but we can, and it's not a judgment. It's just an awareness and recognizing, oh, that could be fear related. So maybe you're getting headaches that are turning into migraines, or, muscle aches turning into fibromyalgia, or chronic pain, even asthma. It can have very serious physical health consequences. And this isn't about putting fear into it. It's an awareness that these things have a physical effect on your body. And even if it's like we talk about conscious languaging, it's conscious thought, it's conscious action, it's conscious speech, all of it, conscious listening. Sometimes we don't even listen with intent, and then we only hear certain things come in our body. So if we're conscious and aware of what we're listening to, that includes the news and all these other things, then we could be putting ourselves into a fear state without even realizing it. I think having that awareness of how it can affect your body, then you can go, oh, maybe I need to look into this a little bit more, because that chronic fear and worry can affect your heart. Your kidneys are affected, your adrenal glands, and we all know what the stress cortisol does in our body long term. It is crappy. We can get things like, a lot of times anger is just on the other side of fear, isn't it? And there's a lot of serious diseases that are associated with anger in the body, the C word, and I won't say it, but we all know what that is. That can just be manifestation of fear, worry, and anger. Don't judge yourself. Just go, oh, maybe this is coming from something more at an emotional level. What can I shift? What can I work on? Maybe you need to talk to a friend. You can have a session with Dawn or I. Maybe we can help look into it at a deeper emotional level or an energetic level and help shift those things. Because yes, we have all these medicinal and natural and plant-based things that can help, but they're really helping the symptoms, and we need to get to the root.
I love that. And as you're talking, I was thinking you store a lot of things in your body. And what popped up for me is the lymphatic system and the fascia. So anytime we have emotional issues that happen, we store it in our fascia and our lymphatic system. And there is a great gentleman who is on Instagram and YouTube. I can't remember his name, but it's called Human Garage. And he has all these quick fascial moves for you to help your body release what you probably forgot about, because it can start at, a child. Were you abused? Did you have extreme stress from situations that you were unaware of? And he has I think it's called the 15-minute reset. You do it for 30 days and it resets your system, where it can, help with obviously the energy, opening up your fascial energetic system from your whole entire body, because it's, using your head, your shoulders, your arms, and all the way down to your feet, because you do end with a squat. And it just makes me think how when we're little kids, we can do all these moves. And as we get older, we get so stagnant and we don't move our bodies and we don't move that energy out. And then I was thinking, I go to my Chinese healer every 2 months to get beat up. And he, uses his extremely painful technique of moving all my lymphatic energetic systems to move the energy to get it flowing. And it's all stored in our, all our organs. Every time we get emotionally involved in something where we lose our temper or just stress that you don't realize that you're stressing about things, it gets stored there. And if we don't consciously release it when it's happening, it gets stored and stored and stored and stored and stored. So that is my go-to every 2 months to check my system. And I do store a lot of energy. I know I feel like the weight of the world is on my shoulders at times, even though I don't have to. But also I do sew in a certain position and I don't move my body when I'm sewing. And I do that, when I'm working. And I've been trying to roll my shoulders to keep that energy moving, because we can unconsciously store energy without even realizing it. I, work in a place where it's kind of hard to do, exercises and stuff. So I do try to, do as much as I can. And another great thing that you can do is rebounding, is jumping up and down. That gets your whole entire lymphatic system going. I can do it for about a minute or two. I know 10 minutes is ideal, but when you're on hard floors, it is not fun. So I also don't want my clients to see me and be like, what are you doing? Because then you have to explain, well, I'm just resetting my system, and when people say that to you, what do you think? What do you mean you're resetting your system? So I try to, do it on the sly. Like when I'm making food, I'll bounce, or, if I'm on my way to the bathroom, I might bunny hop, or, I know another gentleman who's on Instagram, he does it when he pumps gas, because he does travel a lot, which I thought, ooh, that's a really good way to, especially when you're in the car and you get out and you just feel like, oh, like my body is in such a cramped situation. And he sits there and he bounces while he pumps gas. And he could go probably for 15 minutes. Well, some of us can only get 2 minutes in and be like, oh, okay, my calves feel it, my thighs feel it. So there are little techniques out there if you just start looking for them. And it's beautiful, because as you start asking the universe to help you heal yourself, you will be provided with what you need. So just start asking, I need this. What do I need? And it will come to you.
Absolutely. Intuition plays a part in this, and our fear can suppress that intuition. So final thoughts from my perspective on this topic is listen to your fear. It's an opportunity for growth, and connect to it. Oh, thank you for showing that there is something that I haven't shifted yet. What am I sensing? Maybe what action should be taken? And listen to that intuition around it. And don't let it stop you completely. Find a way to work with it, because every time you work with it and get through that fearful situation, you are reprogramming that in your mind. You're creating new neural pathways that it doesn't have to be this reaction to the situation again. And it's about that self-preservation. When you can channel that and study and prepare and find new ways to work with that situation, then it's taking your life back in a lot of cases. Almost see that fear as a third party. Do you want someone else controlling your life? Don't let fear control your life. Take it back, take charge, love it, connect to it, and move forward with conscious action and living and awareness.
Join us next episode for Being Spiritually Authentic, where we talk about what it is. Are you not? Walk your highest path and be aware of everything that's going on. Because I feel like right now there's so much going on and people are questioning so much. Sometimes you just need what the heck is going on? Am I being the best that I can?
Follow, subscribe, and share Embrace the Spiritual podcast on all streaming services, including YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Go to embracethespiritual.com for bonus content and a list of upcoming episodes. To book an aura regression, raw Reiki, or Akashic reading with Dawn, visit her website, alchemy-sacredsound.com. To book a quantum Akashic reading, quantum Reiki healing, pet Reiki, or a home and land clearing, visit Michelle on her website at energeticembrace.com.
Infinite love and gratitude. Thank you for joining us.